If you've followed this channel for some time, you know that I don't like to talk about the dastardly Disney Star Wars timeline. I think that the Disney Star Wars timeline is the root of all evil. I think it is disgusting and disgraceful and distasteful and something that needs to be ignored. But sometimes it's very hard to ignore it. And that is the case for this year's Star Wars Celebration. Star Wars Celebration 2023. Ooh, goody, I wonder what they had cooked up for us this year. And oh my, the horrors that came out of Star Wars Celebration 2023 was unlike anything I could have expected. I did not anticipate even near the levels of awful to come out of this celebration. This is just, it is so disappointing to me. Unbelievably disappointing. And I will explain why it's unbelievably disappointing. So I'm making this video for once, focusing on the Disney stuff. Unfortunately, I really don't want to be doing this, but I feel like it has to be said. This is going to be my reaction to the Star Wars Celebration 2023. As an EU fan, this is my reaction and my response to Star Wars Celebration 2023. And I have some very strong, opinionated thoughts on just the horrors that came out of it. This was not a celebration. This was a burial. This further just shoves the coffin that Disney's made Star Wars and shoves it further into the ground. The likes of Filoni and Kennedy walking on stage smiling and just blatantly disrespecting the EU was horrible to see, horrible to witness, and I'm going to explain why I think that it was horrible to witness. The first word that comes to mind when I will reflect on Star Wars Celebration 2023 is disrespect. Blatant disrespect. Blatant disrespect and disregard for the expanded universe. Blatant disrespect and disregard for us, the expanded universe fans, who kept the Star Wars franchise going during its darkest hours. When there was no new movies and no new content, it was us EU fans who kept it alive. The EU with West End Games, the EU with the Thrawn trilogy, kept the fires burning. EU fans have kept the franchise alive, and now EU fans are being swept under the rug and dismissed. The first piece of news I'll talk about is the Ahsoka trailer. Oh my gosh, it was very hard to sit through, to say the least. Very, very hard to sit through. Especially when Ahsoka says, there's the possibility that Thrawn could return. An heir to the Empire. Ooh, I wonder where they got that from. They are literally taking Ahsoka from DCW and doing the Thrawn trilogy with her. It's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. What? What? Oh my goodness. How? They're doing the Thrawn trilogy as an Ahsoka Disney Plus series. This is disappointing news, to say the least. But that's not where we're getting this disrespect out of Star Wars Fans Celebration 2023. The disrespect comes from the eras they announced. They just recently announced all of these eras, and they lined them up on a screen. And the eras you'd expect to be there are there, you know? And the High Republic and all of its awful abysmalness is just up there front and center. And then if you look, there are two spots behind the High Republic. That's odd, especially considering hyperspace is still like early in its development in the High Republic. So how is there going to be stuff before it? And what's more, the eras before it are taken directly from the expanded universe. They took Dawn of the Jedi, and they took the Old Republic, and they're part of Disney Canon now. Now, not the content itself from the expanded universe. They're going to do their own watered-down, weak, bland, ridiculous, terrible version of Dawn of the Jedi and Old Republic in Disney Canon. It's going to be the same bland corporate media that you've been seeing with the High Republic. This just is so disrespectful. To take the exact era names and plaster them up onto the screen like it's your own idea. And then you're going to tell stories in these eras that are part of the expanded universe. And What's more than that, there's going to be the new Jedi Order as well, set after the sequels, and there's going to be a trilogy with Rey building the Jedi Order the way Luke should have done it, like in the old expanded universe, because Luke really needs to be the one to rebuild the Jedi Order, as seen in the EU, not Rey, because Luke failed. But anyways, that there's going to be a whole trilogy of Rey rebuilding the Order, and they're calling it New Jedi Order. That's just so disrespectful. The New Jedi Order is the pinnacle of Star Wars. It is the peak of all Star Wars content. New Jedi Order is the best Star Wars content we ever received. It is the most important Star Wars story that there is. And then to take that and then give it the name of, name it the era that you're going to put these Rey stories in is just so absolutely disrespectful to one of the greatest Star Wars stories ever told. I am so frustrated by this, and I'll tell you why. They deleted the expanded universe. They erased the expanded universe. They decanonized the expanded universe in 2014. Why? For creative freedom. Where did their creative freedom get them? It got them the horribly received Star Wars sequel trilogy, the disliked Star Wars sequel trilogy. Then they realized, oops, we can't do anything right. We're not creative on our own. So now they're going back into the well of stuff they deleted. They erased, they wiped the chalkboard clean just to realize their blunder and not make it right by continuing EU content, but instead taking the very thing you destroyed and copy-pasting it into your timeline. That's not creative freedom. They erased it, and now they're pulling the direct eras, the direct symbols for the eras of these eras of the expanded universe that they decanonized for creative freedom and taking it and putting it in Disney Canon. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's laughable. It's frustrating. It's ridiculous. And so that's why it's so disrespectful. They erased it, and now they're realizing they don't have their own ideas, and they're having to go into the well of the EU, and they're going to do it in a worse way than the expanded universe did it. I guarantee the content's going to be absolutely baloney, but they're taking it and they're putting it in their new timeline, and that seems so disrespectful. And in doing this, they're also sweeping all of the EU stuff under the rug. We saw this with the Tales of the Jedi show from Davey Boy Filoni. He made this Tales of the Jedi show, not focused on the Tales of the Jedi comic, and now when you look up Tales of the Jedi, it brings up his bogus show rather than the amazing epic comics. It swept the Tales of the Jedi comics under the rug and gave the mainstream casual Star Wars fans a Tales of the Jedi show that they think that is Tales of the Jedi. Now the casual Star Wars fan is going to think Disney's interpretations of Dawn of the Jedi, The Old Republic, and the New Jedi Order is whatever bullcrap that Disney releases. Any of the ridiculous garbage content that Disney's going to release in these eras is going to be what the casual Star Wars fan thinks Dawn of the Jedi and The Old Republic and the New Jedi Order is. I just feel so bad for this new generation of Star Wars fans. They're going to have to think that this Disney stuff is the intended story. And Dawn of the Jedi, The Old Republic, and the New Jedi Order, as we know them, will get swept under the rug. Don't expect New Jedi Order Essential Legends collection prints. They're not going to showcase the amazing story when they're going to be focusing on their own way worse, way more stupid stories that have the title of New Jedi Order. So it's just so frustrating because they're copy-pasting the EU into their Disney canon when they erased the EU to begin with. Why even do that at this point? There's so many errors from the EU in Disney canon now that they could have just worked within the EU the entire time. And I think it would have been better. It's just so infuriating. And as a fan, you feel so helpless right now. You feel like you can't do anything. It's so frustrating. I'm absolutely fuming with this news. I feel like I've been sucker punched today. And I know a lot of my friends in the Discords and Instagram chats have felt very similar in their disappointment. This is just awful, awful news. And on top of the copy-pasting, which is so frustrating, by naming their new products what the old products from the EU were named. Now the first search result will be their new Jedi Order, their new and not improved Dawn of the Jedi, their new and garbage Old Republic. That's what will show up when you search it in. They're burying the EU. That's my main takeaway from Star Wars Celebration. Blatant disrespect and disregard for the expanded universe that is so frustrating to see. See, any hope we had for the EU continuing, it just really feels like this. I want the EU to continue. I really do. I'm not one of those people who's like, don't bring it back, it could be ruined. I think there's more EU to tell, and I really want them to tell it. Alex has a great video about that I might link below. But this news really feels like they're like burying the coffin of the EU further. And they're further jumping up and down on top of it, and they're not gonna open it up and tell more stories within it. It feels really disappointing because there's this disrespect for the EU, and on top of that, they're sweeping the EU under the rug so that casual fans don't discover it, and on top of that, it just feels like they're burying it further by taking these ideas to put them in Disney Canon. It feels like they're adamant, they're doubling down on we're not going to tell any EU stories. It just really feels like a sucker punch. I feel like I've been in the ring with an evil version of Rocky Balboa that has Kathleen Kennedy's face. This just is awful. Awful news. Dave Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy smiling while they announce this. It's just disrespect for the EU. That's my main takeaway from Star Wars Celebration 2023 as an expanded universe fan. This disrespect and disregard for the original timeline and them smiling while they did it. It's just so disheartening to see. May the Force be with you all, and I hope that we can find some positive stuff coming up. I know Supernatural Encounters is on the verge of being released. We will be getting new EU, even if not through Disney, so we can look forward to that. But man, this news just really came as a shock, and it really hurts. I feel like I've been cut in half with a lightsaber. This is just awful. Awful news. May the Force be with you all.